Yeah.
All right, so welcome to the Rejected Stone podcast, brought to you by Rejected Stone Productions. My name is Dr. Jarvis Watson. I am the co-host of this third session that we're putting together, but this is our maiden voyage on going live on Juneteenth of all days. So thank you all for who came on or coming on. Just let you know this is live and it's also recorded. So just to let you all know this is a brave space as opposed to a safe space. But we're going to get into some issues today, but definitely talking about Black Lives Matter. But before we get started, I want to introduce my co-host, Dr. Zebulon. I would like to say a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, greetings, everybody. Welcome. We're really pleased to be doing this. Want to first say happy Juneteenth to everybody. This is kind of like, it really does feel like more like a holiday every year, a true holiday. I felt it all day, the spirit kind of building. So it's nice to just be together like this and having a chance to dialogue and conversate, that's not a word, but which I'm gonna make it a word today, because it's Juneteenth. That's what I'm saying. We're making up new rules. So now I'm just pleased to be here. My name is Zebulon Miletsky. I am most importantly co-host of the Rejected Stone podcast, and I'm so glad just to be here with you all today.
Yeah, man. So yeah, definitely great to be on here with you. And we have a good brother that we realized that got some things in common as far as people that we know and things that we've been doing. And I just want to introduce our guest, Justin Williams. And Justin, how you doing over there?
I'm well, Jarvis. How are you, man?
Pretty good, man. So this is kind of give you a little bit of his bio. Justin's 20-year career as an educator, New York State certified English teacher, which I was also certified as an English teacher, so respect to that, and a school administrator. Has been about focusing the attention of the students on issues of social justice and self-empowerment. One of his favorite expressions used with the students is the study of literature and film is a study of ourselves. Um, couldn't say it any better. Justin has taught English courses in every grade from 6 to 12. Uh, his illustrious career. He has also taught college students at Penn State University and Hofstra University. At Penn State University, where Justin was a full scholarship member of the football team, respects to play football as well. He was the 3-year letterman while earning a bachelor's degree in English education and a minor in African American studies. Um, he also earned a master's degree in education administration in '98 from Penn State. Justin also gained a certificate of advanced studies from Hofstra University and is completing a doctorate degree in education leadership also from Hofstra. Once again, brother getting his doctorate. Got my ADD as well. Justin is a third cultured kid born to Jamaican and Trinidadian parents. All right, big up. Raised in a suburb of London, England, and a suburb of New York City in the United States. He's a member of the Penn State Alumni Association, the Penn State Football Letterman's Club, and the Sigma Beta chapter of Nassau County of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Man, bro, that's a deep bio. And the one thing, last thing he wants to add is the rich diversity represented in his life, talents, and interests is no accident. Got that right. Nothing is by accident. So, brother, thank you for being on with us today. So, I don't know, doctors, you want to kind of start with the conversation?
Yeah,
some things that have been happening.
Yeah. There's so much to talk about, of course, as we all know. And I just want to back up and also, give thanks to Justin. And I met through a very close personal friend of ours by the name of Mark Nason, Dr. Mark Nason. And he is somebody who folks may know. But anyway, he connected, us up, meeting at his house. We were doing the Freedom School PhD Freedom School over there, and it was amazing. And this was a few summers ago now. And I mentioned that just to say that I think, nothing comes out of the blue, right? There has been, I think, looking back on it now, there has been some organizing that has put these frameworks in place that have, sort of all combined in sort of a sort of explosive way to create that moment. One never knows around whom that's going to gather or which case or which situation. But all the, sort of the an imperfect storm, I'm going to say, of race, of really even the sort of X factor of COVID-19, um, a changed mentality, but also built upon a few years now of good, solid organizing. And so I know Justin to have been somebody who's, doing some of that work, and he calls me, hey, can you meet us down at at a bus stop in 6, 8, 9, 8 a.m. tomorrow in Long Island? I'm like, my soul will be there with you. I'll be there in spirit, but I don't live on the island. I know sometimes people forget, but anyway, but he's doing that kind of organizing work. So that's why I was really like, when we said, well, who we're going to have our first guest on Juneteenth, no less.
Yeah.
His name was atop the list. So those are, I know you have been actively connected. So I'm gonna just like kind of set it up the stage, I guess, for our conversation with that.
Well, let me tell you something. First, I'm real honored to be the first guest on the podcast. I'm humbled by that, and I appreciate that very much, gentlemen. Thank you for that. So to get right into it, look, I think that I don't know if it's a fatalistic approach that I have to this issue right now, or that's touching the globe right now in terms of, I guess, race, and particularly the Black race mattering once again, because this tends to be a grand cycle where it ebbs and it flows. I think part of what I would want people listening who are of a lighter persuasion and who are feeling really vested in this issue right now, understand that from our standpoint, we're tired, generationally of talking about the same thing. We have the same conversations generation after generation, and little changes. And I'm more interested in talking about why so little changes. And I think it's connected to the fact that we are part of a system that structurally was designed to work exactly the way it's working. And I'm not really convinced that massive, long-term, permanent change is going to occur unless the structure changes drastically.
Right.
All of our major institutions, legal, law enforcement, political, health, education, all of them are shot through with this necessity to keep people with darker skin generally at the bottom of the totem pole and people with lighter skin at the top of the totem pole. That's it. And an economic system as well. That's it. And we have to confront that, and we have to speak on that. There are people willing to kill so that this system does not change. There are people who believe that we can't change this because in order for Justin and his folk to have more, we have to give up some stuff to give them more. That argument in itself, I think, is false. And we don't spend enough time discussing why that's false. And in order to have that discussion, we have to discuss the rift that was built into the system going back to the 1700s, the rift that exists between white folks who have power and white folks who do not. And it's the white folks that are feeling really disempowered right now who are out there marching.
Yeah.
But it's important that they not be out there marching just because they're tired of seeing Black men and Black women being killed by cops. They should be out there marching because they see themselves in us. They see that what is happening to us is or is going to happen to them or is happening to them.
Mm.
That is a reason to march. Don't march for me, because marching for me is temporary. As soon as your feet get tired, you're going to stop. But if they recognize that what is happening to them, and it's happening structurally to them too, then I think that we have an opportunity to sustain what is going on and to structurally change the paradigm.
Yeah, that is, first of all, just thank you for that great intro. And I think just to kind of piggyback off what you're talking about, I was at a demonstration yesterday. We were just talking before we got started. And the majority, this is at Port Jefferson Village. There's a number of coverage on News 12 and some other places. But when we started, you know, I was like looking around. I'm like, where are we as African American and Black folk? And realized that the neighborhood that has come out, white or Caucasian citizens, and walking down the street, I just had to take a number of pictures. So probably something I can share later. But just looking back, I'm like, this is a sea of like a mixed group, but really kind of seeing us literally peppered. I mean, we being African American Black folk peppered out. And then I was talking to a friend of actually one of your brothers, Joe Perry. All right. And we were saying that are they fed up with what's happening? Are they going to be here like today and not tomorrow? We're going to be here for the long haul. And just to find out, on that particular level, there was actually a Caucasian young man who was helping to make that happen within this town of Port Jefferson, who opened up the door and had the resources to make that work as a true ally, and allowed, I don't like to use the word allowed, but provided an opportunity for young man Malachi Maloney, who's actually a Stony Brook student, to lead that. He was also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So it was just like to see like this young man, young college student, also part of a national organization, leading I don't know how many generations of protests and demonstrations that we can really count, marching down predominantly white neighborhood in Port Jefferson Village. And, to see the power that come together when you actually have a true combination, a true marriage, a true that's membership, collaboration between those who can open the doors that are white, those who have a message who are Black, to really make sure that people are understanding that Black lives matter. So I'm hoping that it can be replicated and duplicated in places like the governor's office, where you see all these different laws and changes that we talked about before. But I'm hoping that's the model that a number of us are using. So yeah.
Yeah. Jarvis, I just brought up a picture. This is something from yesterday. I know
Okay.
it's not probably the best picture. I know you probably have some, but
Yeah.
that was the moment, and you could kind of see over your shoulder a little bit,
Right.
different things, but
So,
I think I know exactly what you're saying, and just that was a really well thoughtful kind of way to as you always do, explore the issue, look at it a little differently. And I always have appreciated that about our discussions. I always felt like, and whether they be electronic or in person, I always got a sense of a sort of a sharp eye for news and what's happening, and sort of a unique take on some of the issues that's not so unique, that's right in line with, I really think that during this time, when you're in a revolution, essentially, a fundamental rethinking of society and all its levels. We're talking about defund the police. We're talking about rethinking education. In those moments, ideas become very important, because direction is also kind of needed, and in terms of thought, where we should be going and what we should be doing. And I know you recently did another podcast. I wanted to give them a shout out as well. What was the what you were on recently, and that was really, really interesting. I just think you have such a unique take on some of that stuff, and so that point is really appreciated. I mean, where do you see, like, when we talk about education, we always make the assumption we're talking about urban, rundown, schools and stuff. I know you've had experience with different levels of teaching and educational backgrounds. Speak to us a little bit about that in a place like Long Island, where you have, wealth and affluence and all this kind of stuff going on out there.
Well, in Long Island, you have both, and so the common way that education gets discussed in this country is that urban schools are poor, rural schools are poor, and suburban schools are wealthy. And is usually the case. It's a lot more nuanced than that, because you have sections in Nassau and Suffolk County school districts that are not as affluent as others, of course. And you have some school districts in Long Island that do fit the description of a quote unquote urban school environment.
Right.
In New York City, you also have schools that fit the suburban model in terms of what's going on in the classrooms, in terms of what's going on in the hallways. So it's a lot more nuanced than that. But in terms of dealing with the structure of education, I think one way that we should be looking to change things that's not really being discussed, but is very much connected to the racial component of what is driving people and their behavior right now in our country and across the world and here in Long Island, is grading. We grade poor kids differently than we grade affluent kids. Affluent kids are not allowed to fail. So we have we call it grade inflation, right? Whether we're talking about an affluent school district on Long Island, whether we're talking about Harvard, Yale, Princeton, the top schools in the world, when you go into those schools, you are not allowed to fail. Private schools here on Long Island too, some of them will not give a grade below 75. And in some places around the world, you won't get a grade lower than 80. They will not give you a grade until you can earn a B, okay? Poor kids, on the other hand, will get 55s all day and all night. So the question becomes, why do we allow poor and working class kids to fail? We allow them to fail, but we don't allow wealthy kids to fail. Okay, that's a fundamental question that gets to the heart of why these marches are happening, because that's the school to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question we have to ask is, why do we give grades, period? Why do we give grades? Well, isn't the purpose of school to sort society into haves and have-nots? Because if that is really the purpose, which it is to sort from young, we're going to decide using these grades who is going to be winning and who is going to be having a more difficult time winning, if they win at all. Okay, there's some research out there it's not new, but it's new maybe for a lot of people who don't think about the gaming industry and how the gaming industry has been for years now doing a hell of a lot better of a job educating than the public schools and maybe a lot of private schools as well. And why is the gaming industry so captivating to people in terms of what they learn and their desire to play these games, right? It's immediate feedback. They can work alone or they can collaborate with others. They have unlimited opportunity for success. And they also can play the same game in various modes: easy, medium, hard, or really hard, right? So there's differentiation of instruction is what we call that in education, okay? Now, the most important one of those is unlimited opportunity for success. In many schools, in too many schools, you have one chance to take the final or the midterm or any test. In a public school system, you have a 10-week quarter and 4 quarters. You'll have every 2 weeks or so a major test, a major assessment. And you have one shot to take that, one shot. Now, who would buy a video game if they said, this is going to be the greatest video game of all time? You buy it, you got one life, and that's it. You're dead, you're done. Who would buy that game?
Yeah.
But that's in a nutshell is school. You got one chance to take tests.
Right.
Now, so this gets to the kind of heart of inequality. And so this is what I look at. And if we really want to start changing things in mass, that's one area we got to look at. Schools, and we don't allow, again, we don't allow rich kids to fail. They get multiple chances to do well. Working class and poor kids don't.
Yeah, that's well stated. And what that becomes about. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm even thinking about some of the things you find for those who are taking these IQ tests and how they kind of pit those who are from a certain race or in a certain class to be better than those who said that are poor, underserved, and unprivileged. And you find out is that the IQ test is based off of IQ, something that is internal. But people are taking tests and prep courses to take the IQ test. So right there, you will already change the game in regards to what IQ means. And it's like, well, if it was a level playing field, you shouldn't have to pay extra money to have your child take this prep course, take an IQ test, just to be about whatever is innate or whatever you develop as far as your intellect to your IQ, your intellectual quotient, and which should be level. Same thing with the SATs. Another situation that even though you can take it multiple times, can you take it multiple times in regards to being able to afford it? You know what I'm saying? And once again, if you are in a school system that provides you the resources to take a prep course, if you know somebody who works within like Kaplan or Princeton Review to help you take these courses that are like sometimes astronomical as far as numbers, as far as how much you have to pay for it. If you have the privilege to do and time to do that, you're going to definitely see some numbers rise up more than others, because while you're taking that course, that prep course, I have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to put some food on the table and go to school at the same time. So what are we really measuring? Are we measuring those who have the ability to pay for the support, or are we measuring grit? The fact that I can balance 3 or 4 different things and still compete with you and still get into the same school that you got into. And once I get there, once I get the resources, I can go past you. So I think that, yeah, you have a lot in what you just said that's connected to a lot of things that are structurally in place right now that really don't provide a true sense of equity or equality.
Yeah. No, I think so. I think, and I think, in the midst of, with COVID-19 and all this changes in education, kind of was a game shifter in terms of the whole discussion about private, public, and then charter, of course. And I'd be curious to pick your, since we're on that topic a little bit, is to get your thoughts about where does that restructure when we're hearing that the Bill Gates and Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates, Foundation is going to be, now, we'll keep an open mind, but we know that in the past, some of those kinds of have been on the charter school side. We have a Department of Education, a person, Secretary of the Department of Education, right now, who's a huge charter, not only advocate, but anyway, I just would love to get your thoughts on that. As school comes back and distance learning is probably going to be part of it, where do you think that all goes?
Well, first, if charter schools and the charter school model is so fabulous, why don't rich parents want to send their kids to them? Why aren't they built in affluent towns and spaces? That's my general take on charter schools. I would never work in one, and I feel that they are unrighteous and should be disbanded, because it's about making a profit in most cases. And as we know, most cases after 5 years, they either go belly up or they're producing results that are no better than the public schools from which they are siphoning kids. So I think it's charter school in general is a racket. what was
How do you really feel about it, though?
Okay.
Yeah. So your specific question was, what am I expecting for this fall in terms of?
Well, I guess, I mean, I've been thinking about that. I'm just sort of watching the winds, and the thing is, first thing being at the heart, just we're talking, as we make these kinds of assessments and discuss metrics, and especially now in the age of, a pandemic, anything we're talking about could mean loss of life, potentially. So we want to keep that at the heart of the discussion, but I just curious, I'm hearing, sort of this triumphant sound against unions today. There's a lot of anti-union sentiment, so I just curious, but I think you that pretty much sums it up. What you said, that, like, there's really not much else to really to say about it. But it seems to me that in this time, the public schools have been the places of care. They've been places like in my neighborhood, our school, my kid's school was turned into really a community center for the time being. And I didn't see that with the charter schools. They may have been open, but I didn't notice.
Zebulon, see, I'm just tired of talking about, all kinds of stuff that to me ultimately doesn't matter, right? And so the where I'm coming from is this: racism is destroying our ability to live as a species on this planet. Okay? Racism is destroying our ability to live on this planet.
There you go.
Capitalism was built on the back of the racist notion that we can enslave people with dark skin and force them to work for no money,
Right.
and create trillion-dollar empires on the backs of that free labor, okay? Now, those trillion-dollar empires are destroying the environment as they continue this economic system that provokes skin complexion hierarchy and attaches a dollar value to that label. And as you go up, you make more. As you descend, you make less. And as you descend, you are darker typically. And as you ascend, you are lighter. That's all over the planet, okay? That's the system, and that system is destroying the environment. Now, it's not destroying the planet, because at some point, maybe soon, maybe as soon as 1,000 years, Mother Earth will select us for extinction, and then she will take another 1,000,000 years to recover from us. But she will recover. I think that the situation is that dire. And when I look at this system of racism through that lens, I am urgent, but at the same token, I'm like, if everybody wants to talk about more givebacks to the impoverished, and if we want to talk about philanthropy and how we take care of poor people, rather than talking about why poor people exist,
right, and
why people exist who can't ever spend the amount of money they have, why do we allow that to continue? If we don't keep keeping the conversation there, then you know what, for me, it's like, I don't know what we're talking about, man.
Right.
I just
just
don't.
Unfollow him on Twitter, right? I hear you. yeah, no doubt.
Just pause for a second. Rayna is about to come in a second, so just keep talking. But if you seem distracted, me making sure that she gets in. But that we're talking about some real stuff here, and I think that if we're going to make any type of move as a nation, it has to be with laws, it has to be with legislation, it has to be with some things that we have to be able to point out. And once you get it pointed out, we have to make sure that we are at the table, making sure that we're making those changes and keeping people accountable.
Right. I mean, Jarvis, I think we got to get to a point where complexion does not matter. Like, it's a Star Trek, Star Wars universe. Like in Star Wars, they walk into a bar and there's like 10 different species in the bar, and nobody blinks an eyelash at that. And there's 10 different, or maybe 5 different languages going on, and like everybody can understand each other. Like, that really should be the future that we're angling towards, but we're not. Because we haven't even emerged yet as a species, because we are so caught up in, well, we're doing a lot better today than we were 5,000 years ago, and we've raised the sea. And so everybody, even poor people today, are better off than poor people 1,000 years ago. Yeah, but the problem is we still got poor people.
Right.
Okay, we still got poor people. And is it possible for us to exist on this planet where every man, woman, and child can lead a decent existence? Is that possible? Is it even possible? How often do we debate that?
Right.
So
Dare to dream.
Every man, woman, and child. Are we at a point in human history where we can provide a decent existence for every human being on the planet? I believe we can, but we don't want to. And if we don't want to, then we are not interested in having a sustainable future on this planet.
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. And on that note, Rayna, come on with that fire. We have Rayna Simon coming actually from one of the poll sites. Thank you, Rayna, for being on here. She's doing her civic and what you're talking about change right now. Rayna Simon is a member of the wonderful, illustrious Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I believe we actually have a relative on this call. Make sure I let him know that he's part of the Make Us Out Five fraternity.
Projected Stone
All right.
Productions.
All right, and also a higher education leader, social welfare extraordinaire. It's been my little sister from the $2, in that particular time. And Rayna, we're just thank you for coming on. Like I said, Rayna's been at the poll site. So you want to give us like update what you've been seeing at the poll site so far? Because we have some really a lot of different changes as far as people doing absentee ballots, and then they have these bridge site kind of situation to help people register, not even register to vote, but just to vote in general, vote early.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I just want to make sure that you can hear me well because I am in my car, so I just want to make sure the audio is good.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So so I am a Board of Elections chairperson actually for the town of Smithtown. So what that basically means is I'm one of the people that runs an ED. So, your election district. So when you come in, I am one of the people that help kind of coordinate a lot of different things. And I am one of the youngest people that actually work in the town of Smithtown with Board of Elections, and obviously one of the few melanated ones that do work here. And today it's been slow.
Respect to the melanin.
I'm not gonna lie. Yes, it's been extremely slow. Early voting has not gone as well as they would have liked, obviously because of coronavirus and that sort of thing. But Smithtown is a very elderly township in Long Island, so a lot of those people just are choosing not to come out, which is perfectly fine. But for everyone who does live on Long Island, live in New York, and they do want to vote and they want to vote early, we have to take all the precautions necessary.
Right.
Yes.
So that means we have hand sanitizer as soon as you walk in the door. We have gloves if you need them. We have to mask up every time there's a voter in the room. We're not able to just be free when we have patrons in the room with us. But a lot of changes have happened. So they have actually condensed a lot of the locations for voting. So a lot of people are not aware of this. So please pay attention to your mail because your new polling site may be coming in the mail. And obviously, I just actually got mine probably a week ago. It's very close to the voting day, to election day. So a lot of people are missing that. And, which also goes back to suppressing people's votes, because if you're not giving out proper information, if you're not doing it in a timely manner, if you're not giving people time to adjust, obviously if I'm just, agitated and disgruntled and I go to where I normally go and that place is now, closed down, I could potentially just leave without recognizing that the Board of Elections has given me, new information, but maybe the mail got lost, maybe the dog ate it, maybe, I sprayed it down so much with Lysol I can't read it anymore. Who knows and what happened? So I tell people all the time to actually take advantage of early voting, because one of the things that's really good and what people don't recognize is that with early voting, any location that's open, you can go in and vote because it's not based on your polling place. So for me, like my polling place is a different location that I actually work when I work for, BOE. So during early voting, I actually get to vote where I am working. So I don't have to leave. I don't have to make any any special accommodations. I don't have to do any of that to get my voice heard. And I think that's the beauty of early elections, because we're kind of flexible. There's usually about 10 days worth of early voting. And if you don't take advantage, then you feel pigeonholed to election day, and that's not true anymore. So obviously this is new and people are just not familiar with it, so people are not really taking advantage of it. But especially while we are in this pandemic and you want to remain socially distant from people, go out to early voting. Because I mean, I'm sitting in my car now and I just saw maybe a family walk in, which means that maybe there's 2 voters. We haven't had a voter in an hour. I was the last voter. So,
Wow.
you know, we're able to, you know, keep
crazy.
things clean, keep things orderly, which is actually really, really cool. But I also tell when I, you know, worked in different places, I also would tell my students and even colleagues, if you have kids who are not working, who are off, get them to work during elections. Board of Elections always needs people. If you are over the age of 18, if you are a registered voter, they're able to work. Yes, some of these hours are brutal hours. You know, on Tuesday, I will work about a 17-hour day, but it's tax-free money. And why would I not do that? You know what I mean? And so for me, I like to empower our melanated kings and queens, princes and princesses to work, because it's very few of us who actually take the time to, you know, give back in this sort of capacity. And so it's so funny when, you know, Jarvis asked me to do this today. I was like, I'm going to be working. He's like, actually, that's kind of cool that you're going to be kind of on assignment in the field, you know, working, because most people don't have that perspective. And to be honest with you, it's a lot of older white people who end up working, you know, during this time. And so for me, you know, being a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, I'm on the Social Action Committee. So this is social action. So for me, I'm out there, I'm able to be seen. You know, I have a little bit of disgruntled people, you know. Earlier today, I'll tell you a little story. There was a, you know, gentleman who walked in, and I'm the first seat that you see at my table, and he insisted on not handing me his ticket.
I wonder why. Let's talk about, what do you think the reason why he didn't want his ticket to be received by you?
For the obvious, you know, and I'm the youngest person in the room today, and the woman who was sitting next to me, she refused to take his ticket because we've worked together for the last 6 years. And she knows I'm capable. She has advocated for me on so many levels to move up in Board of Elections. So I started off as an inspector, which is just a general base level. So now as a chairperson for my ED, I run my ED. And from what I'm hearing, they are hoping that I will end up moving to either a coordinator or assistant coordinator position, which basically means I will assist in running the room. So you can imagine that person who didn't want to hand me his ticket as a table attendant, they're going to be mad when they now have to see me as, you know, the voice of leadership in the room. You know, I've had quite a few men mostly who they'll say a little bit of, you know, like overt things to me, or, you know, just some sly, slick things. I've had, you know, some patrons say, I want you to help me fill out my ballot, you specifically. You're to help me.
Interesting.
This is a dispatch from the scene of the
This is
situation. This has been Rayna
raw.
on the scene, and I appreciate to see, because, you know, I found it interesting, and I wanted to just kind of connect, you know, since you were doing your civic duty, working this things over there. You get a chance to hear our guests today, but we were talking about, you know, a lot of things, and I you know, just recall, like, you know, hearing, you know, George Floyd's brother come on, you know, there and at right there and said, you know, vote, y'all gotta vote. I could almost dropped what I was holding. I did believe it, because as we get to know this family, we're seeing, wow. But he said vote, you know, and I was like, to connect up what just happened and have the presence of mind as emotional, you know, as hurt as he must have been, to be able to collect his thoughts and say vote. And we have said it a long time. It's almost become something like people hear it and say, "Oh boy," you know. But you know, there's so many ways to win this fight. There's so many fights to be won across the board, and so voting right now is everything. That's critical. That's critical.
Absolutely. And I find that we don't do ourselves justice to gain the necessary knowledge of what we're voting for, and we often just like, oh, I don't feel like it, you know, whether it's convenience of location, you know, time, you know, the ability to have that, whether you work in a place where your boss may not want you to take the time, a lunch break or something to go vote. Those are things that they're not supposed to keep you from doing that people don't recognize. And the polls are supposed to stay open until the last voter leaves the location. So if on, you know, election day, if you walk in a polling place at 8:58, we cannot shut down until you are done. And I don't think that we encourage people enough to do that. You know, I saw a lot with Georgia and how they had, you know, 2 and 3 hour waits. You know, as many people as I could tell, please stay on the line. They are required to let you vote, you know, and I think as, you know, people, we tend to use that frustration and diminish our own voices because we don't have the patience, the wherewithal to just stick it out, you know, to just say, you know what, I'm going to be in this line. I'm going to, you know, do the right thing and I'm going to wait. I know that there were some of my sorors who were out there bringing snacks to people. They had ponchos. They were asking for the community to come out and bring, you know, ponchos and umbrellas just to stand there and be on some Farnsworth Bentley holding an umbrella so that the voters, you know, felt comfortable. And
that's mobilizing. That's community mobilizing right there. And you know what? And like I said yesterday, we actually were marching and we stopped at one particular point. Respect to Malachi Maloney out there and the rest of the people who marched yesterday in Port Jefferson. We took a knee for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. It's a really poignant picture I definitely want to share with y'all later. But we were on our knee for like maybe 5 minutes. Matter of fact, 2 minutes. I was like, yo, this is starting to hurt. But when you start to put in perspective what people had to go through, what George Floyd went through, and what other people had to go through prior to that, a couple hours online doesn't mean anything when you really had to be at a poll to give, like my mom talks about, you had to sing Dixie. You had to do a test to make sure you were a good citizen, which is like, if someone tried to do that right now, that was like totally against the law, you know? So I think the fact that you putting things in perspective about like the relative, oh yeah, you put the picture back up, the relative nature of time and place and manner compared to what was happening before we had rights. I think is really great. But I think another thing and this is a question for both of you all, what needs to happen a little bit more so we can have maybe some more community mobilizing? The information gets out a little bit different. I know we're on live right now and, you know, people are seeing this right now, but how do we get back to that particular point? Because we're out there marching, but then the next phase of what we're looking at is how do we go to the next level and voting, but it's not just voting because it always seems like you said, there's a game that's being played. What kind of techniques or strategies can you suggest for both either you or Justin to kind of help people understand?
I'll my sister. Oh, please, Rayna, go.
So, I mean, kind of back to what I was saying before, I think one of the keys is to get the young people to understand the power of their vote and that their vote should start once they are of voting age. I remember very specifically during Barack Obama's first, you know, run for president for office, that was my first time voting. And I remember being on campus, you know, and waiting in line, and so many people had such negativity surrounding him running. And I was like, it matters that I'm here. And I don't think we have poured into them enough to know the importance of their vote. Just like working for Board of Elections, it is so difficult for them to find people to actually work because it's grueling work, and I'm putting air quotes on that. We literally sit around all day, we eat all day, we don't do anything, but it's a long day. And for many people, they don't want to deal with that. It would be wonderful if, you know, others, and I'll just say others, would walk into a polling place and see more of us, to know that,
Interesting.
guess what? Your tax dollars are paying for me to be here, because that's powerful. And I don't think we correlate what we do at Board of Elections with what, you know, our civic duty is. It's not just voting, but it's the fact that I am a presence here, so that way you can see me, to see that I am taking full advantage of not only my rights to vote, but my rights to be able to work to help you and others, whether you agree with me or not, to be able to vote. And it's the elderly, it's, you know, other minorities, it's, you know, for other people to see us as, you know, a presence in different communities. Because listen, I'm not in, you know, where I'm from Brooklyn. I'm not in a Black community. I'm in a very white, very homogeneous, you know, community. And so, to me, whether I'm meeting, you know, people who are disgruntled or not, to me, it's powerful that you see me. It's powerful that you know that I have, you know, a position of authority in, you know, in my ED. It's that I'm being called upon. I was on a road trip getting calls like, can you do this? Can you do that? I need to put you here, because I am a resource. And the younger you are, the more they're going to keep you. These are positions that are going to last you and sustain you while you're in school. You can do this stuff. And so, it's, like I said, it's tax-free money. So why not take advantage and be a presence where you are?
Well put. Well put. I wouldn't
Justin.
argue with you. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zeb. Sorry.
I would add.
No. You know. Yeah. Go ahead.
Rayna is 100% right. Only thing that I would add is the reason that more of us we don't go out is because on average we busy hustling and trying to just, you know, take care of our kids, our families, and feed ourselves. And so it gets back to the poverty issue. We allow poverty to exist in our society, and the question is, why are we doing that? Why are we allowing extreme, in too many cases, extreme poverty? People who are, you know, impoverished are not thinking about voting, okay? And so, too high of a percentage of those folks have darker skin. And so the issue of voting is just something that is just not in their realm of importance. And we are also very much aware that certainly one political party has no interest in ensuring that as many people who can vote do vote, and are actively trying to stop that from occurring. And the other party is really not trying hard enough to counter those measures. And then, of course, redlining, and then we have these voting districts that are gerrymandered to death to ensure a gridlocked government at all levels. And so when you look at those things in totality, you know, we have to ask ourselves, you know, this is a system that is working as is intended to work. And, you know, so I'm tiring of the discussion of getting more people out to vote. Let's make sure that people have a decent existence. Then we won't have to beg people to vote, because they will.
Yeah. I think our politics are starting to come around in so many ways. You know, speaking of the organizing that led up to this, you know, people might have wondered, okay, why are terms like socialism being, you know, bandied about? Why are we hearing more about living wages, and we're talking more about, you know, minimum wage? We're talking about livable wages. We're really finally getting down to the heart of the matter. I remember when I first started teaching, I teach at Stony Brook in Africana Studies, as you know. When I first started teaching, I always had to make that point to students that even though we talk about being in a democracy, you know, the real sort of philosophical and ideological context that we live in is capitalism. And that's the one that's so hidden in plain sight that we don't talk about it often. We didn't talk about World War II as a war for capitalism. We talked about it as a war for democracy. But in the last several years, you know, that has been coming out more in the dialogue and becoming. And now you look at where we are now, and you actually need all of those layers of lenses of analysis to really understand how working folks and how just the whole issue of poverty and how we have dealt with it and lived with it. I always found it fascinating that in economics, the term full employment includes, like, I forget what percentage it is. It was like 8% unemployment. The term full employment means 8% unemployment. You know, what? That doesn't make a lot of sense, you know? And so we have, so I appreciate, you know, that continued focus, you know, and I know we've talked about some of the, you know, anti-racism in politics and that kind of thing is what we need to hear and see. The AOCs and Jamal Bowman I know is also a mutual friend that we met through Mark Nason, is running for Congress. Shout out to him and his campaign. Good luck to him. But anyway, I just throw it back to you, I guess, or Rayna, but a heart for our poor, our you know, less than these, those who, the have-nots, is something that we just cannot forget about and have to keep at the forefront. And I think that's why we're seeing all this stuff of Black Lives Matter and dealing with all of these things with good organizing behind it and a good chance to really transform our society right now. They are doing that.
Yeah, so with all the organizing, I know one thing we've been talking about, and I've been seeing a little bit more of, is this thing of movement fatigue. How while we're doing the Black Lives Matter movements, marching, the organizing, we talked about a little bit about the systemic aspects. Somebody just put something in there. How do we fix poverty? Changing systems is sometimes almost impossible, but is doable, because we have 3 laws that just came into place about policing that if these people around here are protesting, I mean, worldwide, this country wouldn't have been able to recognize that this is a serious issue, even though we've been talking about it for 400 plus years, you know? So for those out there in the movement, how do you really focus on, like, self-care? Making sure you get recharged and replenished.
That's an interesting question, and kind of multifaceted, because, you know, as a Black woman, you know, we are oftentimes the backbone behind a lot, if not majority of the things that are going on right now. And it's hard because we are forgotten. And so mentally, that does something to you when you look on the news and you see, you know, your fellow Black queens, and they are gone, and there's no justice for their killings. There's, you know, no one is really talking about them. So now a lot of self-reflection happens, because that very well could have been me. So now what does that do to my psyche? So, you know, for me, I try very hard, and I think this is something that, you know, I have felt compelled to do a lot more of, which is to post more on social media, you know, to be able to, whether my platform is 3 people or 300 people or 3,000, you know, people, to be able to bring forth information that is pertinent to not only the Black community, but to Black women. And to me, that is very empowering. That is something that makes me feel good each and every day. But that doesn't negate the fact that, guess what? You know, there are days when I'd rather eat, you know, 5 slices of pizza, because I can't, you know, and I think it's hard. I think we forget that the mental anguish that we go through having to see this stuff, and having to live through this stuff, is very real. Somebody I know, she posted something that said, I think it might have been my cousin actually, who said that we are currently living through, you know, a time where once we come out of this, whenever that is, we're going to have to really deal with the fact that everyone, and majority of them are going to be Black and brown people, are going to have some serious PTSD. We're going to hear things that are very triggering. We're going to, you know, see things that are very triggering. And, you know, there's really going to be this sense of, you know, heightened sensitivity. And I think we're experiencing a little bit of that now, but how do we deal with that in the long run? How do we, you know, transition from protesting and, you know, doing all this rallying every day to just going back to normal. What is normal? You know, they want to focus so much on, you know, post-corona, but it's not just post-corona. It's post-deaths and police brutality and murders. How do you expect us to just kind of go on? You know, I think the bonds within the Black community are going to be strengthened, and we're going to see more of that, you know, family-oriented nature that we know and love, because that's going to be our place of solace. You know, and right now where we have to be socially distant, it's really hard. You know, I'm a single person. I live alone. Can you imagine what my daily struggle is every single day to be not only isolated, but isolated? So I am home alone. And I'm having to see all of these things, you know, on social media, on the news, hear it, you know, in so many different capacities. You know, I appreciate the people who do the check-ins, like, hey, how you feeling today? Have you eaten today? Did you have, you know, an adult beverage? Okay, how many did you have? Because I need to make sure that you're not, you know, doing too much, you know, just enough to take the edge off. But, you know, we are in this world where some of us might come out with, you know, some liver issues, you know, because we are self-medicating in that capacity. Some of us might come out, you know, with closets full of stuff because we were just shopping to, you know, to put the Band-Aid on it. But what are we doing as a community and as a people to really recognize the fact that some of us are going to be going through a lot more in the end, you know, and I urge, you know, our Black men to really check in on your Black women, because, you know, we're fighting justice for all Black people. But then when we say, but what about this woman and what about that woman? It's like, oh, well, what about, you know, this man? You know, we often kind of get pushed to the side. So that does something to us, because we're fighting this fight and we're some of the loudest ones to fight this fight. And yet and still, we're also some of the most forgotten. And so I think for me, I just challenge that community, that family base, that love that we typically have for one another, to really be strong and to allow people to break down, allow people to have those moments where they're not okay, and don't expect them to always show up for you. You got to show up for other people when they actually need you.
See, Black Lives Matter was founded by women. Come on, let me talk to you.
Talk about it.
Black women. And hey, you know, see, there's nothing we can really add to that. It's, you know, it's just to pay tribute, and that we have to all keep working together. You know, we have to keep seeing each other, being there for each other. That requires you to look out for each other in the first place. Right. And one of the things that we can rethink and remake in this time period, because who would have thought all these different things would come together the way that they have? You would never have planned such a thing, but since we're in that moment, you know, we can really rethink and remake how we treat one another, how we go forward in life. Are we checking in with people so much? They did an article in Newsday. They were asking, you know, about racism, and none of this made it into that article, so that's why I'm mentioning it here. But I was saying to them that that, you know, if you notice when you see people who are like racist, they're also very angry, and it is we got to start treating racism as a public health issue, as a mental health issue. With anger management approaches and healing needed for what was the traumatic thing to bring it up, because I've seen these patterns, and so one of the, you know, that's so I mentioned all that. None of that made it in there, but it was also just about the fact that we are in a modern day civil rights movement, and so we're all working, trying, and I didn't want to forget about the questions that came in too. I got disconnected for a second, but I hope we answered some of the questions about poverty, and I know Justin spoke so much to it. JP wrote, the voting challenges are part of the systemic issues Justin talked about. It's by design. Also, the system is what gave us the choice between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. You know, and so there's so much to talk about on this, June. I wish we had more time.
Thank
you know,
thank you for the material. Yeah.
Yep.
This being our first, and so So I know, Jarvis, I know we're at around time, and what do you say? Do we? I guess we gotta.
Hey, listen, I think if anybody wants to stay on, that's fine. We are definitely recording this, so we can always break it up in snippets. But I want to respect people's time that we are at the 6 o'clock mark, and I think the last thing, I think, if anything, we needed to kind of talk about is where do we go from here?
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking at the educator that works in the K-12 system, looking at the educator that works in, 16 to beyond level. And it'd be really interesting as it relates to Black Lives Matter. What your take is. And Justin, why don't you take that first, and then we'll kind of wrap it up with Rayna.
Well, I think the first thing that I would like everybody to do is to start regularly checking in on our sister Rayna. Let's
Yeah. Yes.
start with that. Okay, so
yes.
Sister Rayna, if you want to, put your contact info out there so get people checking in on you, let's make sure that happens. But other than that, I just want to see this moment have legs and not be something that fizzles out once the weather turns cold. Okay, so it's easy to protest when the sun is out, but can you stand the rain?
Chat's going crazy.
Yeah,
Chats are going crazy.
On.
Hold on a minute. Facebook's going crazy. Keep.
Bring that back, man. Bring that back.
So I think that in order to sustain this movement, we have to keep our eyes on the overall issue. Black men and women being murdered on the streets of the world by law enforcement is a symptom of a larger issue that is influencing and affecting the working poor, which is made up of a rainbow coalition of complexions. Okay, so if people who are out there marching with lighter skin are doing it because they want to see law enforcement stop killing people with dark skin, my fear is that their feet are going to get tired doing that, because history shows that again and again, those movements don't last. People with lighter complexion have to be marching because they understand that there is a system that is out to get most of us, and it is killing the environment. This system is not sustainable. And this is an existential crisis we are happening at that is on a global scale, and it is an extinction level event. That's what racism is. And there's no point you being on the back of the Titanic in your tuxedo making fun of me because I'm already underwater in the front. Because the water's coming for you too. Correct. That's where we are with racism. And I would like us to, I'm trying to keep the discussion there. Yeah, man, police brutality is a beast and it needs to end. Yes, we do need to defund police. We don't need them as often as we think we do. Look at, if we take care of poverty, affluent communities don't have a police brutality issue. So let's focus on redistributing wealth and making high quality communities throughout the world, and we won't need police officers to have armor and tanks. It's a simple, to me, it's pretty simple. We know the answers to the issues. We just have to make sure that we keep the issues, the proper issues illuminated. And we're focusing on the symptoms and not the causes, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Rayna?
For me, I feel that our young people, our youth really play a key role in breaking down racism. It warms my heart to see some of these young people, our white young people who are fighting with their parents about these issues and trying to teach them and help them unlearn this mental creation of foolishness. Let's just call it what it is. And I really appreciate that. And the reason why I do is because obviously racism is learned. It is not something that we are born with. We see children on the playground and they just want to, hug and play with each other because that is the innocence factor of who we are as humans, what we're supposed to be as humans. And over time, that is, unlearned because you are getting new information that teaches you to sway to one side or the other. And so for our young people who have chosen to not feed into that as they get older, I think is so powerful, and we need to encourage them to have that voice. If we are encouraging them to be individuals, if we are encouraging them to have self-expression, we need to also encourage them to fight against racist actions, whether it be their parents or grandparents, things like that. And we, as minorities, are not exempt from that. I remember hearing certain terminologies that I was like, first of all, we're not even supposed to say that, and it's hard telling your grandparents, you can't use this term, or you can't use this word to describe someone, whatever you want to say. That's our responsibility is to help that, because what if your grandparent now is helping you raise your child, and now they're going to influence your child? It's a learned system, it's a learned behavior, and it's a sickness. As Zeb was saying before, it's a mental illness that we have inflicted upon ourselves as people, regardless of color. And I think that as Black and brown people, we need to do better by our people. We need to do better by what we are teaching our kids. Yes, we need to teach them, manners and how to be polite and be kind and all of those great things that we teach kids how to be, but we don't teach kids how to grow up to be full-fledged adults, respectable adults of one another. We just don't do that. And I think that it's really important for us to do that. We can rewrite history books. We can put all of our information there, but if we're not bringing that into the home, what are we doing? Because a lot of the learned behavior that we see happens in the home. Teachers can only teach but so much. Yes, they have a level of influence, but if the parents are not willing to educate themselves and educate their kids, we're going to continuously see this cycle happen. We talk about breaking down cultural, barriers, and we say, oh, the cultural barriers stop with me. Well, what are you actually doing to make sure that those things stop with me? What does that look like for you? What does that look like for you and your girlfriends, your homeboys? What does that mean? Let's call out rape culture. Let's stop, posting our homeboys who might have had a little situation, back in the day. Let's stop being so agreeable with those actions and behaviors, so that way we can really do a better justice for ourselves as individuals in our own communities to help support each other. Let's magnify the voices of the people who are doing the right things. Let's showcase them. Let's post them on our stories. We have the platform of social media that is, undoubtedly a gift and a curse. Let's use it for more of a gift. Today we are celebrating Juneteenth, and it's like, let's buy Black today. Okay, well, why today? Let's buy Black every day. Why are we not saying that buying Black is what helps us create better communities? And as we're talking about creating more wealth and getting us out of poverty, let's do that. Let that be the narrative, period. Not just on Juneteenth, but on, August 1st. What are we doing for those days that are not on the calendar? Not just Black History Month on those 28 days, and when leap year it comes and gives us 29. Like, let's do this on a real level. We have the power to do that. We have the power to change that, and we choose to be complacent and not rise to the level. And I think that's part of our own narrative. That's part of us creating our own story, is that we need to do better about posting that. And let's be inclusive enough that when we get our allies who want to, amplify our voices, that they are amplifying our voices and not quieting our voices. We need to teach our, white counterparts that you don't speak for me. You allow me to share your community with you, that you magnify my voice so that way it is heard on a grander scale, not let me shut you up and let me speak for you because you don't know my experience. And I think that's also a part of accountability as well. We need to teach people in a lot of ways how to help us advocate for ourselves where we can't do it, where we have our own handicaps. So I think it's a learning experience with everyone, and we need to sensitive, but not hypersensitive for, the wrong things. We need to be more sensitive about people's experiences and how they're willing to kind of come together with us, and let's teach each other. Let's, teach each other about our history. I've been sharing so much on Facebook and on Instagram, and it's just like, wow, I didn't know that. And I'm learning as they're learning. And, I said something to one of my friends. I said, oh, we're clapping so loudly because Yale is now giving us, free courses on African American culture. I was like, but do y'all realize that this is what HBCUs, this is what they do every day? So Yale is going to get on the credit. Right, Yale is going to get all the credit for training people and teaching people all about Black culture. Why? You understand what I'm trying to say? So it's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of a lot of things, but I'll stop there because I could keep going all day, child.
And we're going to sit around like a virtual collection plate.
Can we vote? Yeah. You just gave a campaign speech in the car in the parking lot of the.
I think between the both of y'all, man, y'all was brought. Thank y'all, man. That was like
should run.
Oh,
should both run for office. This is what I'm saying.
While you both were talking, I was trying to cue up the picture. This is a picture from yesterday, and let's see.
Yeah, I echo.
Yeah, so while you're talking, keep going.
Yeah,
man. So this is a powerful picture. And I think this is like when Black Lives Matter, when the world understands that Black Lives Matter. And like I said, the little history behind this. There's and I can't remember this young man's name. I know his last name was Gross. But this young man who lives in Port Jefferson Station, who was helping organize this, open up the door, and actually recruited Malachi Maloney, which is one of our students, to lead this march, which took up the whole entire street. If you know anything about the street, this is Main Street at Port Jefferson Station. Port Jefferson Village. And when I look back at this crowd, I was like, wait a minute, man, this is a mixed kind of situation. I know this on the call the other day, we just listened to a call with minority millennials. They were talking about the diversity that millennials and the Z generation actually has a little bit more of the world kind of coming together in situations like this. So I'm like, this is great. And I'm hoping that at the next level, they're still at that whatever table they need to be at to make sure that these things are going to actually have some type of sustainable effects on change and how we see the world. So we're really looking at these young people. I really applaud them and love them for their dedication. And I'm hoping that they want to do a little bit more on their own to learn a little bit more about the Black experience, but take that and take it to the voting polls, take that to the legislators, take this to the school systems, take this to our higher education institutions, because of the fact that we are really depending on them. But also, this is the revolution that's happening right now. These are the ones that are making things happen. As an Generation X, I'm just like, man, we were marching, but not like this. This is worldwide, and really, it's something to really see. I'm glad I'm actually able to record this.
Yeah, I remember turning on the news and one day and seeing some guy in Irish Parliament, Black Lives Matter. I was like, wow. I can't believe what I'm watching. I can't believe what I'm hearing, and it turned out in such a humble statement. Because I remember a lot of us when it back in Trayvon and everything, when Black Lives Matter came, said, well, that's all the best we can ask for, that our lives just even matter. No, that was the beauty of it. It's simple, it's humble. I always point out to my students, W.B. Du Bois' book, The Souls of Black Folk. Reason why it's called Souls of Black Folk is because he's saying that Black folks had souls. We are human.
Wow.
We're human beings. We matter just as much as anyone else, and the whole point is we all should treat each other better. A new vision of the world. I just also I didn't want to keep going, but something Justin said. We're seeing people are now going to the UN to testify and talk about these human rights abuses. And we always remember Malcolm's sort of words towards the end, and he was planning to bring these things before, and efforts were made. We charge genocide. This is a really good piece on that. And so it's almost like all the things that were left on the shelf from the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, all the other movements that didn't get dealt with are now suddenly getting dealt with, and being engaged with in a very powerful, transformative way. And it's what a time to be alive and in conversation and just in touch right now. It's remarkable.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and I've participated just to kind of soak it all up. But listen, marching is not going to do diddly squat at the end of the day. The work is going to be in creating policies that are going to change things. And those policies have to be enforced. So we've got, this is a really necessary and powerful moment, but it has to be sustained with action that follows the action of walking around and loving each other up and unifying across complexions, across persuasions of all kinds. It is a monumental moment in human history, but it will be largely for naught if it doesn't result in paradigms change.
I agree. I remember watching Instagram live, with Angela Rye and Amanda Seales, and one of the things that they were talking about was the fact that, regardless if we are mad that Joe Biden will be our Democratic candidate for presidency, it's not about him as a person. It's about us as a people, and how are we going to hold him accountable? So when people say, oh, they're not going to vote because they didn't want Biden to be the presidential candidate, they were like, you're missing the point. Regardless of the figurehead, they still need us to be influential in being able to advocate and target the things that matter to us. If we allow the figurehead to just run things and run amok without us doing the background work, then we're right. Then it doesn't matter if we voted or not. But kind of to his point, it's the purpose of the work that needs to be done. Yeah, we can march, we can rally, we can scream, we can do all these things to just be heard. But it's not just about being heard. You need to hear us on a different level. You need to hear us from not just the screams, but hear us for the silent cries that we have. We need to be able to say, hey, I have said that we need police reform. Okay, just telling us that all the police, people who are offended are quitting doesn't do anything for us. If we are talking about defunding the police, what does that actually look like? Maybe it's not the terminology that we need to use. Maybe it's not defund, because everybody wants to be up in arms about the word defund. Well, maybe it's a reallocation or redistribution of funds. Maybe that's the better term. And how are we going to do that? Allow us to be in positions of power where we actually come up with full-fledged plans. And it may not be plan A, it may not be plan A through D, but somehow we can take those plans and be able to come up with something that is comprehensible for us to be able to then utilize. I saw a question in the chat about what am I going to do to help with teaching kids and how to be better, and this is how we teach them that the work doesn't just stop at marching. We teach them that they have points of influence at every mark that they make. We can teach them to speak up in class, when they feel something is wrong. We can teach them, to not silence their voice when they get to of an age where something is really important. We can teach them to learn how to network on a different level. We can teach them that the people that look like them, what those differences are. There are some people who look like you who are going to be for you and going to be your allies, and there are going to be others. And how do you differentiate that, and how do you utilize those different people to your advantage? How do you hold people accountable who are in positions of power? These are things that we have to teach the youth. And I think that's important, and that's something that we, as older people can do. I don't have any kids right now, so I can't even say, oh yes, I'm going to teach my child to do this. But I know that if, the good Lord blesses me with kids, I can teach them from a young age of, how to have manners, but also how to stop bullying. We don't have to be complicit with bullying. We can stop that pattern, because guess what? Little Timmy is going to be, labeled as having, been bullied all his life, and we need to, feel bad for him. But what about Tyrell? What about little Tyrell? He was bullied too, and so why is it okay for one and not the other? So now let's talk about anti-bullying laws, at the local level. Let's talk about what that looks like in schools, school boards, and being able to say, what are the teachers able to do? What are the schools equipped with? And it's not police, it's teaching teachers and teaching parents how to be more accountable for what they're bringing into schools, and how they're allowing that mentality to then take them from kindergarten all the way up through adulthood. It's a full circle, and we need to really do better about looking at people and humans as having a full circle of life.
Once
I'm gonna
again,
vote twice. Early and often.
And I think this is the best way to wrap it up with the voice from the sister, from the mother, from the matriarch, from the
No doubt.
the one who just calls it plain, and the ones I think definitely get overlooked through the struggle. If you think about the ones who have emancipated us, is really like people like Harriet Tubman, the Shirley Chisholms, the Dr. Angela Davises, the countless others who helped us out, Fannie Hamers, the people, the Mary Church Terrells that people don't talk about as far as women's suffrage. I think this is most appropriate that we wrap up with you, Rayna. Before we say goodbye to our guests, we want to make sure that we, first of all, thank you all for being here. I know it's a Friday, Juneteenth. Y'all can be with your families and everywhere else, but y'all here with us and on our maiden voyage. And I know Dr. Miletsky and I are really truly grateful for everything that you've done and provided. Now, if you ever see the things on the chat, there's two chats. There's one that's on Zoom, there's one that's on Facebook, and they both are full. And people just giving like a lot of big up. I see Roxy out there. But really want to make sure that we pay homage to those who have lost their lives to help us understand that we always do it, but now the world knows that Black Lives Matter. So we will remember George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Remy Fells, Rhea Milton, Tony McDade, our brother out in ATL in Atlanta, Rayshard Brooks, Oluwatoyin Salau. All right, we want to make sure we pay homage and just like perform the silence for them. And we also recognize all the countless other Black lives lost to police brutality and racist violence. So we want to thank you all for being here. For those who just jumped on, I see a lot of faces and names I haven't seen in a long time. So thank y'all for being here. We want to roll out to say this is the Rejected Stone podcast, part of Rejected Stone Productions. And this is real talk about real issues in real time. And we have a saying when we roll out, we say in Swahili, Tuwende, which means let's go, even though we're wrapping up. I mean, we got some work to do. So Tuwende.
Tuwende.
All right, y'all. Be safe. Oh, represent. Back it up a little bit. Back it up.
Juneteenth, y'all.
Little X-Clan action. All right.
Enjoy the Juneteenth.
A little for my sorors.
All right. Respect those that came before us.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Rayna.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Rayna. And my brother, Dr. Zebulon. Miletsky.
Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all.
All right.
All right. Tuwende. Be safe.